like my podcast. If you're a baseball coach and you like to listen to podcasts, I've got one. It's called Baseball Outside the Box. And you could just Google it, Baseball Outside the Box. Again, for the video and for the audio, we just got started. We're recording. My name is Pete Caliendo, owner of Caliendo Sports International. I've been in baseball over 40 years, from the instructional aspect, professionally as a coach. Our national team with USA Baseball. I've been USA Baseball a long time. Currently not, but currently trying to slow down a little bit. I've been to 50 countries, working with coaches around the world. Do a lot of international work, but what I really love is what we do. It's a business. I want you to know Caliendo Sports International is a business. And I want to state that straight out because I want to make sure people understand that, because sometimes they think it might be a club and you're kind of going on a trip like you would on a club in a national tournament. And it's a little different than that. So obviously part of our business is making a profit. Want to be upfront with that too, like any other business. But the most important thing is, before I show you the presentation, the slides, is that because it is a business and we charge, it's not cheap. As you know, some of you got the flyer, it's not cheap to go, whether it's the Dominican Republic or it's Japan, we go to, or Cuba or Italy or different, and sometimes we take specific teams, they want to go to a certain country. It's obviously going to be expensive going internationally. But the most important thing is the service that we provide. That's what's critical to us. And the top service for myself is obviously having great coaches on staff. That's extremely important for us. And we got two very good ones. In a second, I'll have Daryl say a few words. But the second part is making sure that everything is organized, run well. When we get into that country, our staff is there. We have staff in the Dominican. We have staff obviously goes with the trip, not just the coaching staff, but somebody from Caliendo Sports, could be myself, and most likely in the Dominican it will be. And then the other part of all this is the cultural aspect of it and the life experience, because it's an experience not just for players, it's also an experience for families if they go. Biggest question that comes up about families is, does the whole family go? Does one parent go? To two? Obviously, that depends on finances. It depends on schedules. We've had families split up. A mom might go one year, dad goes the next. We've had also players go by themselves. And normally, in that situation, I think that's important to understand, because sometimes a parent say, "Well, we're going to send them, but we don't know anybody." But there could be a possibility that they would know a family. If they don't, we would put in touch with a couple families way ahead of time, so you kind of get to know them, talk to them on the phone, the Zoom, whatever it may be. And the players are never left alone, whether it's the player that is going alone or the player with the family. We all stay together from the minute we land in the Dominican Republic, Santiago. We're always together the whole trip, from the time that you guys depart the Dominican Republic. So that's kind of in a nutshell, what we believe in doing, making sure. That's why it's a baseball trip that involves competition, obviously very good in Dominican Republic. I think you're familiar with Dominican baseball. And the cultural aspect, they'll see things that you've never seen in your life. And most importantly, you'll appreciate coming from the US because of the luxuries that we have and how lucky we are to be in this country. Coach Daryl, a military person, can tell you all that. He spoke to me about it, and he had me, getting goosebumps because he says it a lot better than I do. So it's an international trip that definitely is a baseball trip, but also young people come back with a different perspective. I have parents that come back with different perspectives, and we still have parents from 20 years ago talking about the trip. So it gives you an idea. Anytime you need a reference from any families that have gone on trips with us, no problem. We'll put you in touch with them, email, whatever. They'll be glad to talk to you about the trips and what it's all about. Before I continue and start the slide, Coach Daryl, I just want you to say a few words. I know you got great stuff to say.
Well, thanks, Pete. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm good, Pete. You got me?
I got you.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you. So just a really quick background. Have done baseball for many years, and I met Pete. I can't even remember what the year was, but I was in Arizona doing some training with a pro hitting instructor out there, and initially met Pete, and he had asked me a few times, I think, if I could fit in an international trip. The timing never really worked, and this time here again, very humbled with the opportunity to jump on board. And of course, I'm probably somewhat selfish in this respect, because I'm thinking the Dominican Republic in December and January is probably a little bit better than Nebraska weather. So so pretty excited about the opportunity. And of course, as Pete mentioned, I've spent a few years in the Navy, and I was thinking about this, Pete, the other day after we talked about how many countries I probably have traveled to, and I never do count the ones that are, I fly into the airport and I leave. I've got to be there for at least, a week or more, and it was 30 different countries. And so when Pete talks about, it's a pretty humbling experience when you go to some of these other countries to see how they live and how they still really, really, truly value family in the sport of baseball. In this case, you come back home from traveling to these international countries, and it is a life experience. And so Pete asked me to jump on board with this. I feel pretty comfortable in my baseball experience of coaching and having played and getting an opportunity to help lead part of the team here as a coach. Really excited about this opportunity. So some of you that are online right now, I know players that I've trained with, Max and Mike and Luke. Jackson's online, I think, too. Kingston, I have not, but I do know of him through ETC and Mike Alessandro. So thank you all for spending some time, and really excited about this opportunity. Thanks, Pete.
Awesome, Daryl. And by the way, and I know some of the questions that come up because I've been through this, obviously, folks. And one of the questions always comes up, well, how do you pick your players? Well, the best way to pick your players is through your coaches, obviously, people that you know. First of all, it's our coaching staff, simply because then the parents know that coach also, or is recommended by another coach. And what that really tells us is that because we want to make sure we do two things. We want quality players, but most importantly, we want character players, because a character player comes from a character family, and that's important to us, not just as a team aspect, but also when you travel internationally. I think parents can understand that if you've been internationally, and then the young people will learn that, because prior to departure, we have a Zoom call with them and discuss about, what it means to go internationally, and that the magnification of people looking at you constantly, and anything you do, is magnified 100 times. The simple things, like when you go to Japan and if you spit on the ground, they're not accustomed to that. That magnifies big time, right? Or if you swear, that magnifies big time, because people say, "Oh, see, he's the ugly American," and that's the things we don't need. So in order to pick the players, the coaches are involved, and myself, along with other coaches that we know around the country. Another question that comes up a lot, and I want to answer it right away. Again, before I show you the slides, a lot of people will say, well, is there exposure in this type of event? In the past, I never thought about it that way. But then after so many years, I started thinking, well, okay, I guess if you need to know, of course, there's going to be exposure. And there might be better. What I mean by exposure is, exposure of their talents to college coaches. It's not something that we promote heavily, but it's important, because the question does come up, and that is, our coaches are going to see these young people for a week. They're going to see them in very uncomfortable situations. It's not a situation just like a national tournament. It's a completely different event, because they're traveling all day. They're going to be with players they don't know for sure. There's no practice, right? There might be practice like first day for an hour, and then we play right away. That's the fun part about this. Now people say, well, wow, you don't practice. How do you compete? Well, that's where the players come in. The ability to think on your own, make decisions on your own, communicate on your own. Now you're kind of forced to play the game instead of somebody telling you how to play the game all the time. Now the coaches come into that, and that is obviously teaching them things about how to play the game, right? We're not there really for the fundamentals as much, in hitting, pitching, because you're only with them a week, and you don't want to start changing players within that week. You can suggest things later. We can do a report at the end, say this is what we recommend. You can change, but think about where we see them. We see them in travel, at breakfast, at lunch, at dinner, intermingling with Dominican players, mingling with their own players, mingling with our staff, parents they don't know. They got to get their sleep, because sleep's so important, because if they don't have enough sleep, their production goes down, and they want to do well. Well, are they eating well? How do they So these are all things that college coaches want to know about. Well, you can't ask for a better situation 1 week with players to be able to identify and give them a good evaluation. So that's something I think that is definitely important to our program. If we can help a young person with an evaluation, obviously we would give a true evaluation. So that's part of the program too now. So let me start right now, and then because there's a lot to, I'm not going to go over the details that are important a couple months before you depart, and that means the preparation part, what to bring, how to pack. We'll have another Zoom call. We'll get everybody ready. Coaches will have a meeting with the players, right? So that way they can go over maybe, a couple signs. We don't need a lot, a couple signs, a couple things defensively, things to kind of prepare them. And then obviously then we're off and running when the trip starts. So let me start the sharing here, and then I'll show you a couple slides, just kind of give you a little idea. Bear with me here because I got to do it with my finger here. All right. And just help me out. Let me make sure I've got can you see Coach Darrell, you got the,
You look good right there. Your slides up.
okay, that's all. And we know the dates. Those are the dates. We sent those out in case you didn't see them. The email you have. This was just something on me. I put this here and I expected both coaches to be on. But Coach Darrell went over his background. So that's kind of what I had mentioned earlier, just a little bit about me. Again, why join our team? Top level coaching, training. I say training because we'll train with Dominican players also. A lot of times we do like infield, outfield with them. We might do some drills, and that's really cool because now they kind of emulate each other, right? The Dominicans learn from the Americans learn from the Dominican kids. What's kind of neat sometimes we'll also, and this is exciting too because it's different. A lot of times, we understand pitching and pitching safety, and obviously following guidelines. The USA Baseball guidelines, Major League Baseball has guidelines. Coach Darrell knows all that. These kids are going to be pitching in the winter. We're not going to pitch them a lot. They're going to be playing mostly defense and offense. We're going to watch their throwing, their pitching especially. But we will add Dominican players to the squad to pitch because they have so many of them and they're used to pitching all year round. So they're prepared already. That doesn't take away from playing time, just takes away from the pitching part. But again, the safety is important. So it's not like we're going to pitch a person a whole game. He might only pitch an inning or two, and then rest a couple of days and come back later in another game. So we've got that aspect. The competition speaks for itself. Dominican Republic baseball is great. Age-wise, you never know what ages show up. Obviously they've got a lot more players than we do. We usually carry between 12 to 15 players. Just depends on how the recruiting goes. And then the training aspect is obviously from the mental part of the game with the coaches, some meetings, even in the evenings before they go to bed. Sometimes we'll have player meetings, which parents are always welcome. We like to keep an open dialogue with everybody. We think it's an educational program, not just for players, but also for parents. Anything we can do to help in any way during that trip, we will. And then the cultural and life experience, and that takes care of itself. With all that, you can't help but having some fun. You're going to meet a lot of great people from the Dominican Republic. They're going to make friends. They'll keep in touch a lot of times on social media. I know players have been in touch for 20 years. It's incredible. And some actually, we have some there right now that have gone down. They got to know some. We went down and spent a month with them and training down there on their own. So it's kind of neat to see that happen. This is some of the fields we play on. People think, well, we can go, there's 30 major league teams there. Why not go to the nice fields? Well, we can do that. You guys play in nice fields at home. You go to tournaments all over the country. You're in nice fields. It's not that we don't want to play in a nice field, but we want to play where the Dominicans play. So we travel in the Dominican Republic, and Santiago is a little bit more modern city. It's not like Santo Domingo. Santo Domingo is a little bit like the Wild West a little bit. There's so many teams there, but it's just, safety's not as important there in some ways, but Santiago is a safer city. Not that we've ever had any trouble, but everything's been great. But the fields are important because we want to show them where the Dominicans play, where Dominican kids don't have what we have, but yet why are they so good? Because they don't worry about the equipment. They don't worry about, how long the bases are. They don't worry about, is the pitching mound, 60 feet, 6 inches. If it's 60 feet, 4 inches, okay, we'll pitch at that. If the mound's lopsided, they pitch off of it. Some don't even have bases. Now, don't get me wrong, there's going to be fields with bases also, but once in a while I show up and they got potato sacks at bases, right? Or there's a chalk line for the pitching mound. They're dragging a field with an old fence that was torn down. So that's the only way they can drag a field. There's a pitching rubber. There's a tire that's in the ground as a pitching rubber. There's always something unique that you see, but it really doesn't bother them. So that's kind of the educational part. We have our own bus the whole time. We have our drivers, we have our staff, we're together the whole time. These are some of the fields. We actually have staff for the last 15 years down there who do a fabulous job organizing things for us. Obviously, they get paid to organize everything. We pay for the fields, if there's umpires. We also bring down equipment. If players have old equipment to bring down, anything that they're not going to use anymore, right? And they're going to give it to the players they want to give it to, or we split it up, give it to the clubs. They don't have a lot down there, so anything helps. Baseballs, bats, gloves, and I think that's a great part of the program, is being able to help some of the Dominican kids that don't have things. We've got, these are just some of the fields. There's a Major League Stadium there. We take a tour of the stadium. Sometimes they let us play on it, so there could be a game on that Major League Stadium. I don't put it in there because we're not 100% sure that we're going to play on it, but we tour it. There's a museum. Because part of the trip is also a little bit cultural, right? We go to the beach and I'll show you that because you just can't play all day and practice all day. So we want to make sure that you see the city and outside the city. The clubs we go to are different clubs. So we have to drive obviously 20, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on the distance, to different clubs to go play. So they see different facilities. It's cool. Sometimes we have Dominican kids on the bus with us. So you got the music going and you got, they love to sing and dance, and it's just a lot of fun. It loosens people up. So that's kind of neat. We use better baseballs than this, but I want to give you an example. I don't want to scare you. We use good baseballs, but these are some of the baseballs they have. Hey, whatever they have, they use. We talk about balls that are like, we have weighted programs. They throw weighted balls all the time because their balls are wet. They're different sizes. It's like it's being uncomfortable and becoming comfortable in an uncomfortable environment. That's why they're so good. That's why we have long distance runners, right, coming from Africa, where they're running in uncomfortable situations. You see some of their training is incredible. It's kind of like Rocky Balboa, where he was training. There's some clubs have, like, this is a club where a priest runs the area, and we might have a national anthem. They do their best. They have a speaker. They have the priest throw out the first pitch. Not every club can do that. So some clubs have some things they do. Some clubs, don't have those abilities. You notice the chalk line on this one. That's just dots. That's just a can stuck to a stick, powder in it. They go down, shake it, and comes down to that size. Parents obviously come on the field for ceremonies. They come on the field after the game. They take pictures. You take pictures together, team pictures. We give out gifts. We don't expect them to give us anything. And we just make sure, and we have small gifts that we'll give out to every player and coaches. So again, just a lot of camaraderie. The hotel is a good hotel. We've been there for 15 years, now 20 years maybe. We know the people well. The food's good. We have breakfast there. Sometimes we'll have dinner there. It just depends on the schedule. We'll have lunch with box lunches. But again, down it's in Santiago, right in the city. There's places to go walk around and stuff. No players ever walk around by themselves. Always with either a parent, coach, or staff member. But again, we're together all the time. It's a pretty busy schedule. Think about it. We got breakfast in the morning. Then we might go and work out for 45 minutes, play a game, then have lunch. The lunch could be either back at the hotel or back in town, or it could be a box lunch depending on the schedule. So now you got, chicken and rice and plantains, their type of food. It's good food, cooked well. So everything depends on the schedule of the games. And after that, we might have a tour. We go somewhere, whether it be in the city, whether it be to the ballpark, whether it be to a pool. We go to a rooftop pool. We try to do that early to kind of, if the kids don't know each other, we go to the pool the first day, hopefully, or the second day. So they kind of build that camaraderie and get to know each other and loosen up a little bit. This is just the airport photo. When you arrive, it's a very small airport. Like when you have players that arrive alone, our staff will be there to pick them up. So that's not a problem at all. It's not like any big airport where you're going to get lost. Obviously, you need a passport, and we send that out to notify everybody, get your passport, start that process right away. It's just good to have a passport anyways, because they're good for 10 years. You never know when you're going to make a trip. Um, let's see. And then, this is just some of the, on the left is the Dominican restaurant we might go to. On the right is the hotel restaurant we might be at. So again, it varies where we might go, but it's nice to kind of get the change, right? And we'll go to a TGI Friday to have a break. Yes, there's McDonald's and Subway around the corner, because, players are used to those kind of things. Even though McDonald's got not very good food nutritionally. Not that Subway is either, but you're talking to a nutritional freak here. So I'm outside the ordinary. Let's see. There's TGI Fridays with the players. Here they are eating their box lunches at the field, right? Because sometimes we may not be able to get back to the hotel because we're scheduled to go. For example, we go to Puerto Plata, which is an hour and a half away, and that entails, either playing a game there and then going to the beach. And then there's a tour that we take in Puerto Plata for the parents and players, kind of show them the area, but also once in a while we'll do a cigar factory that's combination of jewelry and different things that they have. So kind of hits what the parents kind of want to see a little bit. We have coaches meetings. Again, you notice the parents are there with the coaches at the coaches meetings. Why? Because it's important that they hear everything that we say, not translated later by a player when a parent says, well, what was the meeting like? What they talk about, and then you don't kind of get the full picture. I think that's important because education is good for everybody. I think we all learn constantly. Where I'm learning from the players, can't tell you how many times I learned something from players. Again, another field, taking pictures, players getting ready for the national anthem. They're obviously not ready yet. And then some of the team photos that we take with the different teams. And we have you notice we have the parents in there with the team photos and everything. And then this is Puerto Plata, where we go to the beach, beautiful area. Again, we're there a couple hours, an hour and a half, 2 hours in the water, and then we go for a tour. That's after the ball game. We'll play a game there in that town and then go on to the beach after that. Very important. On your left is the Major League Stadium, because like I said, we take a tour there. We took a picture out in front. That's the professional team there. A lot of big leaguers have played. The Miguel Tejada, Nobly, Colon, the pitcher, the big right-hander, pitched there for years. This is some of the tours that we took downtown. And that's it for right now. Okay, I just wanted to kind of show you a little bit the pictures of kind of some of the areas we go to, some of the things we do, the uniqueness behind it, the experience, the schedule, very simple every day, right? Breakfast in the morning, early, great breakfast, especially mandatory for players, because that energy is important in the morning to get going. Sleeping is important. Obviously, we want to teach that aspect of it, and recovery, the day after or that evening, after the game, there's a little gym there. Maybe there's some workout that they can do, some bands, whatever it may be, to get a good recovery for the next day and get ready. Uniforms obviously are included, and included in the cost is pretty much everything. The things that we don't include, and there's reasons for it over the years, like we don't include lunches, and it could be a lunch or a dinner, kind of flip-flop it once in a while. And the reason we do that is because we got to give you a break a little bit. We notice, so you can't keep feeding people because a group thing all the time. Because if it's part of the group, then it's a buffet type meal. So we give people a chance to kind of go on their own at lunch, like I said, around the corner with their parents, or maybe they want to eat at the hotel, or wherever it may be. That kind of gives them that. The does not include the flight. Also, if you notice the flyer, it's the $17.95 a person plus the flight. The flight varies depending on where you're coming from. It's going to be a little higher. Obviously, you notice flights are high, and they're going high right now, especially in the summer, even though we're going Christmas time. Good time to book flights is always about 3 months before. Anytime you get into the 2-month period, you got to be real careful, because the algorithms, did I say that right? I can never say that word. Algorithms of the airlines, they do their studies. And by the way, I speak 3 languages. Sometimes, I might speak a little Italian to you too. They do so many studies that they know exactly when people book flights. They know how long they wait. It's amazing. I was reading about it just the other day again. So they know all this. And so they know that most people are going to wait a month or two before to book their flights. And it's so true that people wait. And then the price goes up, obviously. The earlier you can get it, the better it is. Now, how we'll handle that is as soon as we're comfortable that we have enough players or enough in the group. And what I mean by that is, and you'll be amazed by this, as there were times where, especially after the pandemic, was a little rough and we were down for 2.5 years in a pandemic with no business. But we might only had 8 players sign up. So where are you going to go? If it's 8 players and say 10 parents and the run numbers around 20 works out budget wise, well, then all we got to do is get 5, 6 Dominican players. Now, ideally, if you want the program to be at its best, you'd have half and half Dominican, half American players. That's an experience of a lifetime. But from a business standpoint, obviously, I'd rather it's not that. But if it is, it is. As long as the numbers work, we're able to go. We're going to go. So things are looking good right now. We got a good response of people. I know they're not all on, but we got really good response. Both coaches have been working on it. I've been working on it. We'll start asking for commitments, and how we do the commitment aspect is we basically will send an email, say, okay, now we got to start making that commitment. And it's a $500 deposit for everybody that's going. That locks you in, and then we're sure, because we just can't play around and just keep waiting, because that kind of ruins it for everybody. We want to go obviously with the players that we're recruiting. Once in a while, we'll get other players from social media, families, but we'll do our homework to check them out and everything before we add anybody. Playing time, never an issue. If you got any questions about playing time, it's the opposite of Dominican Republic. There's more playing times. We can play as many games as we want, but at the same time, it's not a time that they're accustomed to playing. So they're not going to be as in shape for playing, too long. So that's not a problem. So inning wise, position wise, getting at bats, no problem at all. Like I said, we'll ask for the deposit, and then we'll begin to make that roster. If there's in the family, if there's a parent that's going with a player and then the other parent doesn't know yet, that's fine. You can come later. As long as we're going, we could always add people. But we just need to get enough to make sure that we're going budget wise, that it works. So that way, later on, we've added people 2 weeks before. Just remember the cost might go up will go up on the flight most likely. Once in a while, you do get lucky. Doesn't very often. It's happened to me once in a while where I get lucky. 3 weeks before you book a flight and you find it cheap for whatever reason it might be. You just got, right time, right place. Tuesdays are a good time to book flights also, according to the experts. So that in a nutshell, that's kind of the trip, what it entails. It includes the coaches, it includes our staff, it includes the staff in the Dominican Republic, includes the buses, the drivers, the food, with the exception, as I mentioned, the lunch. So there's really not any other expenses except souvenirs after that. Expenses as far as, what you might want to get, if parents drink alcohol, obviously there's expenses there. We do spend New Year's Eve there. So we will have a big party on that evening up at the restaurant with dinner and a lot of fun. A lot of times we may not stay up till midnight. People might have early flights, but that depends on the individuals, right? But we'll have the dinner about 8:30, 9 o'clock, we'll celebrate. And then people can hang out at the restaurant because it's usually us, and then fly out the next morning. So that's kind of in a nutshell. Like I said, there's a lot to the trip. And I kind of hit the highlights of it. Coach Darrell, I know I missed some things. If there's anything that you think, or even a question you might have that might spur another question by somebody else, or somebody wants to type it. Let me see in the chat. No,
Yep.
Everybody's, go ahead.
Sorry. So I think one of the things early on I asked Pete just to make sure of, because it said the 26th as it starts. Is that like a travel day, right?
Because, yeah, that's a travel day, and then we have meetings at night. Yes.
Got it. And, yep. And then the roster size, or at least the roster, I've essentially been sharing with folks, there is nobody on the team. So it's not like everyone that we're inviting is trying to make the team. Anybody that's invited by us coaches essentially are on the team if they decide to go.
Yeah. So if they're invited, because we've done our homework. The coach knows them well.
Right.
You know, people even ask us, do you guys hold tryouts? No, it's
Yep.
all references, and the top two
Yeah.
references are the top two coaches on staff. There could be a third coach on staff. We don't know
Yeah.
yet. Like I said, and I'll be there too to handle all the off-field stuff. Most likely, you know, you never know the future, but I am scheduled to go. And I love the trip there because, you know, we have a lot of friends down there. The people are so great. They're just hospitable, you know, they're so giving, and they don't have anything. So
Mhm.
that's why it's also that cultural aspect, you know, for us to be able to help a lot of young kids there, and even help the coaches, because a lot of coaches don't have a lot of equipment, or they don't have shoes, or they don't have, you know, fungos or whatever it may be. And if we can help out, we'll bring that stuff down. It's always a little extra cost if you bring a little bit more equipment, but it's worth the cost
Mhm.
um, to help them out.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? Any questions? I hope, I mean, and I'm not going to hang up yet, but I hope that it kind of gave you a little background of the trip. You know, you book your own flight, by the way, so that way you could use frequent flyers. You can use, you know, you can go on kayak. You can do whatever you like. The age range, thank you very much. It's 15U. Now, the Dominicans do not play, you know, and we're the only ones in the U.S. And I won't get on my bandwagon about this. Don't worry. Um, the Dominicans are or excuse me, the US is the only one that usually plays like 15U, and you got to be a certain age at 15 or 15 only. I remember when I was a kid, I went to Mickey on baseball school at 15, and I was playing with 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds. As long as I could compete against them and I wasn't going to get hurt, they were going to let me play. So I bring that up because in order to get a full roster, sometimes we might have some 14-year-olds on there. We might have a 16-year-old on there. You know, the question is always, can they compete at that level? Then we're fine. We don't look at the age as much. As long as and I've seen, and I'm sure everybody else has seen, you know, ages depend on player. You know, you could have a 14-year-old is better than a 16-year-old. I've had that many times. I've had 14-year-old better than a 15-year-old, or maybe just, you know, equal with them. So that the most important thing is, can they compete? And the coaches know them, and they're going to be safe. So that's why I bring that up age-wise, and it helps with the recruiting, obviously, because, you know, it's not easy to go out and, you know, always get 15 players or 12 players to fill the roster. So sometimes we do have to go one or two age groups. I hope that answered the question. Let me see if there's another one. And remember, feel free to always follow up with me. Since we're booking our own flights, do you help coordinate transportation to and from hotel or provide a contact? Yes, what we do is a couple things. You fly in, and the hotel sends a shuttle to pick you up. It's all scheduled. They know when you're coming in. Now, in our case, if I'm there, then I'll meet you at the airport. But most of the time, people fly in. It depends on if it's a parent and a player. You know, if it's a player only, then we'll have a staff member there. But if it's a player, because the hotel, by the way, and I should have mentioned, would have helped. It's only like 8 minutes away from the airport, and the airport's really small. So it's real quick and it's real easy. We had a little situation in this Christmas where I was not able to make it, and I was on WhatsApp. By the way, we have a WhatsApp group email or group system, excuse me, not email, where everybody's on. So that way we could communicate. Now we don't want people to, you know, keep asking questions on the WhatsApp. What they'll do is they'll ask it individually to, like, say, our staff, and then we'll send out the response to everybody, because otherwise you get 100 WhatsApp and people start getting upset on it about it. But most importantly is we'll keep in touch with you, because there might be a delay, there might be a cancellation of your flight. You know, you never know, right? With the way things go with airlines. But the good thing is that we'll always be in contact with you. So when you arrive, the hotel knows, the staff will be there with a sign, and the hotel driver will be there with a sign to pick you up. So no problem, no issues. We've never had any, and communication has been really good. One thing you will learn, we will over communicate with you once you're on board with a lot of details, and especially prior to taking off, to making sure that you're ready to go while you're traveling. We had one person one time, I know, got stuck in New York, so I had to stay in communication. Came in, I think, a day late. We can stay in communication and make sure of everything, and that's how we communicate with our staff also. All right, great question. Pete should have known that one. Did you say that they might play on the pressure? Yes, there's a chance that we'll play on the big field. We always try to ask. We pay for it, obviously. It all depends on who is in charge at the time, and if they allow us to do it. We just can't guarantee that yet. But don't worry about that. As far as playing time, like I said, that's not an issue. Did you say they might play in the field? Great. Another great question. Hotel, private contact, super. Yeah, you'll get also with the hotel, you'll get the contact hotel. By the way, if you decide this year this Christmas, we had parents that went in, a couple parents went in on Christmas Day. They decided to go in a day early. No problem. I don't schedule Christmas Day because it takes away from obviously being with your family at Christmas. But some people, decided to go in a day early. You'll pay your own hotel that day, and then but we'll organize it for you, and we'll let you know. And the hotel people are great. They know us so well. So when you get there, they take care of you. And by the way, the WhatsApp helped because I'm on WhatsApp with the hotel also. If a person arrives early at Christmas time, because one time it did happen also where they arrived early and the hotel said, well, we don't have your reservation. And obviously WhatsApp hotel got a WhatsApp, boom. The person was new, didn't know how to get to the system correctly because they were in the system. That got handled. The manager at 2 a.m. that was at home handled it, believe it or not. Just great people and great staff there. All right, what else we got? Love questions, because it just gives you an idea about the trip. It gives you, it's a trip that's hard to articulate unless you've been on it a lot. Even I've been on it so many times that I have a tough time articulating because it's just, obviously it's my business, but it's so exciting if you can do it. Now, if you're going to go bankrupt, don't do it. Okay. If you're going to, I understand you love your kids and you want to, do whatever you can, give them the best experience. My parents, believe it or not, I started at 3 years old traveling by myself with a flight attendant at 3 years old. My parents sent me to live with my grandparents in Rome. So that's probably what got me into international baseball, right? Or international travel. When parents want to do anything, they can, but obviously you don't want to go into debt doing something like this. I always tell people that, but if you can do it, and by the way, yes, players can raise the money and people are pretty sympathetic and it's simple because I say simple to start and kind of follow up with if the player follows up a lot, because if you just email the donation letter we have, people see it and you do it 2-3 times because people forget, somebody says, well, I'm going to donate $100 to this because we're friends of mine or grandparents, or whoever it may be. Sometimes they forget, they put it to the side. I've done that with donations, but then I got a reminder and I said, oh man, I got to do that and send it in. $25, $10, $5, $50. You'd be surprised how that adds up. And it kind of gives a little responsibility to the player too, that everything's not all about, parents writing a checkbook. Hey, you're going to put in a little time here and maybe raise some money. In the old days, the way they used to raise money, they used to go to the department stores and sit outside, some of the kids with their parents, and get donations. We're going back 20-25 years. So there is a donation letter that we give, and then you could use that. We're not a nonprofit, so it's you'd have to check with your tax attorney. That's usually not a deductible, but again, people are donating $25, $30. So most of the time, they haven't worried about it. So there is that aspect of also. What else? Is it great for parents? If you can do it, absolutely. You'll have a tremendous experience, tremendous time, a lot of fun. Like I said, we got parents still talking about it. And we can put you in touch with any parent that just went this Christmas also, Christmas break. Anything else? Oh, one thing we'll ask you to do, and I think if you've traveled nationally, we'll have you purchase your own travel insurance. Why do we do that? Because medically, most companies, if you track it with your medical insurance, but there's something for you to know later too. They don't cover you internationally. If they do, the deductible is ridiculous. And for $50, $75, it's well worth it because it covers bags, travel, flight delays, flight cancellations. There's a couple big companies that handle this. There's a lot of companies. Do your homework. We'll send you that detail. What we use Alliance, and we're not tied to them, but I just use Alliance personally myself. And you see them advertised. If you're on YouTube, they're on YouTube all the time. that, makes you feel comfortable, especially if something happens prior to the trip and you can't go. So that'll protect. It's like any other trip that you're taking with a travel agent, right? You want to protect your investment. So we're here to guide you in that kind of stuff to make sure that you're prepared well prior to the trip. Okay. And I think the last thing was, thank you for the info. Fantastic. If there's nobody else, I will let you go. No other questions. I'm not in a hurry, but if anybody else, Daryl, after this, if you could stay on, we'll go over a couple things. That'd be great. Nothing. Okay. So what we will do, we will follow up with a few things that we talked about in an email. Then we'll follow up with commitments if people are committing for the deposit. Now, the first thing I'll do is I'll send out a player profile form to fill out, and then the deposit to send in the mail. That'll be the first thing. And then we will keep you informed. Once you're on the roster and we know that some of the what parents are going, we'll keep you informed on the roster also, or any details about the trip. Okay. Hope everybody had a great Memorial Day weekend. God bless everybody. And have a great week. Hopefully you're having a good, whether I think it's travel ball or I think high school or American Legion actually also. And then you've got, I know some high school baseball might be going on. But thank you everybody for joining us, and look forward to hearing from you. Any questions, email us. Okay. We'll get back to you right away. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll stop the recording. Hang on. And wait. Stop. Whoop. You sure you want to stop recording?